Italians have come across. Actually, 2 Italians and a Spaniard, but a Spaniard that doesn't want to be called a Spaniard, because England doesn't like Spain. First one was Bonetti, he was the Grand Master. His students were a guy called Saviolo, who young Chris there is going to give a good demonstration of in a minute, and another one, the Spaniard, called Geronimo. I'm sorry, he doesn't go across to America and cause problems for the cavalry. But he translated an Italian work by a guy called De Grazia. And he got to one point in the book which said sword. And he went, hang on a minute, all these English fellas think that's a sword. Show us a sword. Sword. This isn't a sword. The English won't accept this as a sword. So he said, what can I call it? So he went to the Italian first, and it's called a spada. Well, Italian being fashionable in England, everybody knew that spada meant sword. So he went to his native Spanish. And this sword is called espada de rapido, the fast sword. And he went, well, I can't go that, it's a godful. I'll call it a rapier. Hence, we've now got this thing called a rapier. Gentlemen, would you like to demonstrate Saviolo? Charles and Chris are now going to give a general sort of feeling of what Saviolo's work was like in London in 1595. What you will notice while they're fencing, they're using their offhand. I'm going to change the rules a little bit and add a few things that they actually did in the period. Chris? Continue. So, instead of having a bare hand, he's now put a dagger in it. It's a bit of an unfair advantage, but hey, they're Italians. Ish. That's a general little feel of what Saviolo's rapier was like. Now the followers of Saviolo, as I said, Italian fashion. In Italy, the big thing that there was a ruff. And these guys wore big ruffs. And as they wandered down the streets, with their rapiers on their side and their big ruffs, they got called ruffians. Now there was a bunch of English guys that didn't really like them. You get the general feeling this has happened before. Now these guys were the followers of a guy called Silva, and they carried a backsword. And on the backsword, they hung their butler. Pick up a butler, please, guys. A butler's a small shield. And as they walked down the street, the butler used to swash against the side of their sword. Oh, we've already got it, have we? Yep, they were known as the swash butlers. Sorry, no pirates here. Now these are all civilian weapons. We still use, pick up the sword please. Sword, sword. Yes, that's a sword. That's not a sword, that's a rapier, isn't it? That's a rapier, Charles. Everybody knows that's a sword. Pick up the sword. Everybody knows that's a sword. Swords are used by soldiers. Rapiers are used by nice people walking down the street causing mayhem. But technology moves on. And you needed some hand protection. Swordsmiths come up with things to protect your hand. This is known as a swept hilt. Remember it, I will be asking questions later. Now, you may notice how I'm holding it. Between the hilt top there's a gap. That gap's known as a ricasso. And there's 3 ways of using the ricasso. 1 finger over, which allows you to cut and thrust. 2 fingers over, lot of cutting, bit of thrusting. 2 fingers either side, lots of thrusting, not much cutting. Doesn't make any difference. Did it with a sweat tuck, because you can't see it when I get to this one. German General, Pappenheimer, because I'm sick of being stabbed in the hand. He's a German, he don't like that sort of thing. So he had that designed. Now the workman that did this made it thin enough and light enough for him to be able to hold it. And he went, grand. Unfortunately, like everything else in Europe, it was fashionable, so everybody got one. It then took on a little twist. Here's the twist. Now, you can call this a cuppill, you can call this a musketeer rapier, you can call this a Spanish rapier. It's the same thing. The difference is, a musketeer has 1 finger over, a Spaniard has 2 on either side, and of course anybody in Britain wants to put 2 on there because they still want to cut. We now have a little break in civilian life, because in England we had a little bit of a falling out with each other. We called it the English Civil War. So, Oliver's been and gone. We've got the Restoration. Charles II's on the throne. Notice how we jumped all that time, ain't it great? Now, one of the things that Oliver had done when he was in power was get rid of theatre. In the Elizabethan theatre, when you went to theatre, you stood up. So with a rapier, not a problem. In the Restoration, everybody wants to carry a sword again, but they want to go to the theatre and ride around in the carriage. So this weapon appears. This is called a small sword. Yeah, we're very inventive in Britain. It's a small sword. Pick up a sword, please. You've got it in your hand. Sword, small sword. Now the army go one route and civilians go another. So we're going to go down both roads quickly. Small sword, the army said, we like them, but it's not a military weapon. My baby. This is my baby. This is a spadroon. It's a small sword that doesn't have a sharp back, because it's the army. And the army like to cut and thrust. Is it any good for cutting and thrusting? It's very good at cutting open wine bottles. It's very bad at cutting open people. But don't worry about it, because if I'm using one of these, I've got a sidearm, 120 men stood at the side of me. If I have to use this on the enemy, something's gone wrong with them.
Moisturising cream. Oh, can I borrow some? I didn't need moisturising.
The civilians, not to be outdone, come up with this. This is a civilian small sword. You may notice now there's no cutting edge. It's all point. It's very, very fast, very, very nice. And somebody's willing to come over here and get hit with one. Yes. Smile nicely at Sue. She doesn't like doing this.
Get off me, boo!
Mummy's got a can.
Yeah, but you don't walk home. Christopher's coming with
No,
you.
children.
Up there, you come bowling. You don't need no bowling. She didn't do that. You bored and then when I asked you, you don't want him.
No, he's watching there.
Look at that man. Look at him.
Go on, Janet.
You are Jamie. Go on, Jamie.
Go on, Harry.
Look at me.
Harry Potter.
Dancing when you're in there. Melanie, who's that you were dancing when you... What, and up in air? Wing sword. Go on, travel show. Get in there.
Right, back to the military. 1796 light cavalry sabre. Absolutely gorgeous weapon. It flows beautifully. The French hated it. The French called it the butcher's knife. I have no understanding why. But it so impressed the Prussians that the Prussians said, we'll have some of that. And they did. Prussian embassy in New York. Americans saw it and they went, like a bit of that, we'll have it. So you've now got Americans using it, Prussians using it. Some of the Prussians' friends, the Saxons, decided to use it. The Dutch decided they liked it, they used it. In fact, in Europe, the only people that weren't using this, apart from the French, were the Italians. Oh yeah, they were on the French side, weren't they? But the problem that they did notice was the British infantry actually started fighting. So me with the nice padroon and my 120 men was great in pitched battle. But when it come down to going in hand to hand, like the rifles and the light infantry did, my wine opener wasn't very much good. So a guy called Sir John Moore designed this. This is an 1803 infantry sabre. Without going any further, it's very, very fast, it's very, very sharp. It's still sharp after 200 years, and it's gorgeous. Now that's great for these officers, but cavalry used to attack infantry. And infantry used to get worried by cavalry unless they were Scottish. Remember I said about a backsword? Well, backswords went to Scotland. And in Scotland they decided to change the backsword a little bit. And they created this. Now, the idea behind this sword is you stand at the end of the line and as cavalry comes towards you, they run away. If they don't run away, you hit them with it. Horses don't like this. Horses don't like big sharp pointy things anyways. And this is definitely a big sharp pointy thing. The army at the time, or should I say, the Secretary of War, said that the issue of the Scottish broadsword was for the dismembering and lowering of cavalry. I don't know about anybody else, but if I throw this anywhere, it's going to go wherever I throw it and ain't going to stop. And I'm going with it. So if I'm defending a load of soldiers with this thing, I'm not going to be there very long after I've used it. Did it ever get used in battle? No. What did it get used for? Highland dancing. And at the Duchess of Richmond's ball, just before Waterloo, a squad of the Highlanders, the Golden Highlanders, took these and danced around them before they went to fight a battle.
Are you sure you're breathing?
You've seen all those nice fighting swords that the British Army had. Here's the last one that they ever did have. It's the one that's still in use today. Is it used for fighting? Nope. Was it designed to use for fighting? Nope. Because by the time this came into existence, the army knew that there was no way on earth that they would trust an officer with a sword to go and hit somebody. Give them a pistol, let them shoot at it, give them orders. Do not let them go and hit them with a sword. What is it used for? And many other ceremonial duties.
Morgan didn't even know what a camel is.
But, big but, we're now on to the civilian side again.
Big bum and he cannot lie.
Alfred Hutton, lovely chap. Don't know him personally, but I've read his works. Alfred Hutton, sabre. Started teaching in England, an ex-military man, but really loved sabre.
In bed.
Designed this, and he fenced in, effectively, a boxing ring. Because he believed he should not be standing there going, that was a dance. And with a sword you should be fighting. Please bear that one in mind, it's going to come back in a second. Italian chappie, Pecoraro, also had the same sort of idea, but the Italians classed this as a dueling sabre. Dueling was illegal, so what they did was they just sharpened the very edge of the tip, so they could leave a mark when they were dueling, so they weren't breaking the dueling rules. He had some friends. This gentleman who designed the sword, Ridley. Again, Italian, again, dueling sabre. Interesting invention. With the sidebars. Oh, didn't we have them way back there with another Italian with swept hilts? Yeah? Yeah. Interesting. I'm the last Italian. Guy called Marciello. Looks very much like the others. It is slightly different. Now, Baron de Coubertin, when he started going to do the Olympics, was a swordsman. And he wanted swords in the Olympics. He desperately wanted swords in the Olympics. Foil, not a problem. Epee, not a problem. Sabre, big problem. So he said, what method are we going to use? Some people said, Pecoraro's the best. Some people said, Hutton's the best. A few said, oh, you've got to go with Ridley. They looked at the styles and they watched them. They turned around and they said, Ridley's too vicious. People will get hurt. They turned around and said, Hutton, it's too brutal. It's in a boxing ring. We don't like Pecoraro, he's a southerner. Southern Italy, that is. And they came up and they decided Marciello. This is the sabre that was used in the Olympics up until 1936. This particular one was actually in the 1904 Olympics. And yes, it still works. Unfortunately, could you bring me a sabre, please? The sports. This is what a modern sports sabre is now. If you're really interested, you can go on YouTube and you can find footage of this being used, and you then get footage of this being used. This is gymnastics with a sword. That was brutality with a sword. That's wonderful. This is interesting. Now, you remember way back when we had a small sword? Small sword turned into this for the Olympics. This is a foil. I'm not bringing out the epee, it's big brother. But now we're going to have a little play.
bad old monk. Look, we're good dancer. Put your hands up in the air.
Put your hands in
Don't you having a fang?
Look at him.
Could you release?
Melanie, you know he's got a camel toe.
We came to see it. City as well. This is bad.
What?
It's men what can get camel toes on the off ball sack.
Diana's got a camel toe.
Families here with little children and you're shouting some rude things.
Diana's got a camel toe.
She's snowing.
Whoa, look at that woman. She's having him. She's having him for tea. Oh, yeah. Look, they're having each other for tea. Oh, she's having him. Don't mess with her, she'll knock me out.
Don't mess with him, Mum.
James is curving on his arm.
Don't be gentle with
Bob, 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 Bob. And Bob, Bob, Bob. Two.
Want me to win?
Blank was actually, didn't it?
Nick, would you have me?
Can't you actually wave it? He's got a new phone.
It's dangerous, you know.
Smells it.
What's he doing dancing?
Why do you find me at sticks on
Get him in his tights.
Yeah, but there's some time.
God, you would all get scared back then. You would want here.
Oh, yeah.
That was score for life.
I'll sing so much more. Don't see that man, is it? Maybe it's that man.
And thank you for bearing with us for 500 years or so. They're not worthy. Big thank you for Sue. God bless. Charles, Chris, God bless. I'm Rick and I'm knackered.